Are you? I am back. This is day 3 of the Single Solution Project. And listen, I know you guys have watched the first 2 shows. The Friday night with the ladies panel, listen, they are still talking right now about that. And then on Saturday, I had a slew of good-looking single brothers that brought it home to us. They were extremely real. They were extremely candid, and I was excited about that. You guys are talking to me. I was up till about, let's say, 2 in the morning with you guys talking to me, and it was really fun, actually. I know that sometimes people are a little shy in their communication, so I stayed up. You were emailing me, you were inboxing me, we were talking about some of the things that you guys are dealing with. And that's what this forum is all about, so that you can get comfortable doing that. And so we were talking about some things, the questions. And I know some of you guys were sending me your questions too. And I really wish we had those questions on the day it was happening, but no problem. I'm not mad. I'm not mad. I'm excited because that allows us to have a whole nother show. And so that's what we're planning. So, of course, if you are still interested in participating in one of our shows, you are welcome to do that. I want you to send your email requests to uh, the purpose party TV at gmail.com, and tell me what you want to talk about. And I'll tell you when we're going to do it again. And listen, I believe it's unlimited, so everybody can come. You're going to need to get that password though, for Zoom, the ID. So that's the reason why I need you guys to email me, so you're not left out. So you don't say, Bridgette, when was it? And why didn't you tell me? And I was looking over your Facebook and I didn't see it. That's because we were private. So we can talk what? Privately. So anyway, we are here, the third day here, and we have brought all the beautiful women and the powerful men together. As well, we have added a wonderful asset, and his name is Pastor Donald Bell, and he is from Covenant Blessings Fellowship Church in Wilmington, California. And he is somebody that is, listen, I'm gonna just let you hear him, okay? Period. I need you again. Everyone is on their phones. If you are seeing the live stream and you're seeing the names come up and people gathering and all of that, then in a minute, I'm going to ask you to submit some questions. Our panel has some questions that they're going to be asking Pastor Bell, and he's going to be answering those for us. And then after we finish, then we're going to go straight to our phones. They're going to be looking down and they're going to be seeing the questions that you are presenting and the things that you want to kind of present to the forum and present to Pastor Bell. And we're going to be answering those questions on today. And then we're going to be just talking about the whole singles entity, all right? Because there's some things we need to clear up. Like I said, Pastor Bell has been doing this for a long time. And I say one of the qualifications, I'm gonna let him tell you his own qualifications, but one of the things that qualifies him for me is the fact that he's been married a long time to one wife. And so that means that he is qualified to talk to me about relationships. So anyway, I'm going to take some time. We're not going to get into it just yet. I'm going to allow you guys to go, go take your church clothes off. You was only half dressed anyway at the top. So get casual. Everybody knows you got your church dress on, but it's your blouse. And guys, you put that tie on, but we know you got them sneakers and boxers on. So it's okay. You can still be dressed like that. No problem. No dress code here, but we want you to get relaxed so you can talk. I find people talk better when they're comfortable. So anyway, I want you guys to go out and tell people, share it, please. Press share and share this on your page so that people, even if you can't reach them, you don't know everybody on your page, all those friends, 3,000 friends, you don't have all those phone numbers in your phone. So if you press share on my page right now, if you're looking at it, it will go immediately to your page, and then everybody that's your friend can see it. So anyway, we are so excited. Once again, let me just name it. We got Eric back. We got Carrie back. We got Joshua back. We got Regina back. We got that Jennifer back. Ellis is back. Sonia is so tired from singing, but she's back. We got Terry back, and we got Sandra is back as well. And so anyway, we'll just say this because Les said he is watching, even though he is driving, he works. And so working is a good thing and is rare. As well as Aaron, he is working. So we can let them keep their jobs because that is rare right now. But their hearts are with us and they did appreciate being on this show as well. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to introduce to some and present to some other folks. If you have been under a rock, then it's okay. I do understand why you don't know this man. He is a phenomenal person. He is a educated. He got so many letters behind his name that we got to get a new alphabet. He's a wonderful speaker. He is a great friend. And I'm going to introduce to you Pastor Donald Bell. And we're going to start him off with him telling us a little bit about himself and, you know, what his history has been in the Singles Forum. Pastor Bell, I love you. Thank you for joining us today on this panel.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for creating this format. A part of me feels like a rapper who would be saying, allow me to reintroduce myself. But my name is Donald Bell, and I've been in ministry since I was 16, which is 40 plus years. I won't get into the exact number because I'm trying to stay young.
Okay.
But I've been in ministry for 40 plus years. I was a singles pastor of one of the largest singles ministry in the country for 10 years. Started a singles ministry, had about 6-7 people attend regularly. Over time, it grew to anywhere between 11 to 1,400 a week for a singles Bible study, people coming from all over the Southern California region. Grew that, then started a church 20 years ago, Covenant Blessing Fellowship. So I've been pastoring that now. This is our 19th anniversary as of the first Sunday in August. So I have walked with people in their singleness. I have walked with people in their marriages. And I have actually, a couple of years ago, I married the first child of somebody.
Wow.
I ministered to as a single. So I've been doing it for a while. My kind of philosophical approach is there is no boundary between the spirit realm and the earth realm. So I'm willing to talk about and explore anything anybody wants to talk about. So
Yes.
That's pretty much me.
And he's being modest because listen, let me just say, when he was doing this singles ministry, and this very tiny church that if I mentioned the name, you'd be like, what? That's a huge church. You know, they were like, you know, 1,100 to 1,500 singles. Do you hear me? Not we mixing them with the deacons and the usher board and the choir. They were all single. And we would pile in the car. You know, I still lived out in IE and he is in the Inglewood area. And it was like we just did not miss a day. And we would go down there and we would stay until it was over. And then we would linger after it was over. And then we would talk after it was over. And it would grow and grow and grow. And so to anyone that was doubtful that doing an effective singles ministry wouldn't draw anybody, please, I'm sure that it was its own entity within itself. People were blessed by it. People were encouraged by it. I'm still pulling things that I learned under his leadership from it. So I'll just let you know, he is great. He is a master of his craft. He is a trailblazer. So anyway, you'll know. So just ask your questions right now. If you have questions, our singles right now are on the panel are looking at their phones. They'll remember the questions. They'll write some stuff down, and then we're going to get to those questions. But we're going to start this question and answer session with our own singles on the panel. And so they have questions they'd like to present to Pastor Bell. So we're just going to start this thing off with, let's see who, Tiffany.
Everybody. So Pastor Bell, I have a really great question in regards to Christians dating online. So it's kind of a two-part. What are the pros and cons of a Christian being on an online dating app? And ultimately, should Christians be engaged in online dating?
Okay. I'll start with the should, and I'll answer that one. My opinion on that has changed as time has evolved, but my reasons for the opinion have not changed. Being online, I don't do in shoulds, I do is. And the reality is that in order to make connections now, and the generations coming, that's just the reality of their world. They're online. As much as it pains me to spend time with my daughters, I know that includes them being on the phone. That's how they get their information. If I say something to them, they're checking it on the phone. So that's, for my generation, that's a struggle. You know, we want to meet people, we want eye contact, we don't do virtual at that level. But what I realize is that as time has changed, the generations are becoming more virtual, and in a point we'll probably drop the term virtual as time goes on, because what does that really mean anyway? So I don't have a problem with it, but what you mentioned, what is significant is the pros and cons. That's the real issue. So the pro is I can extend my search out virtually into realms and places and opportunities that, to meet people that I never would have had. So there's that positive to it. But at the same time, people can hide behind a profile. So it used to be, I see you, I get a sense of you, I'm curious. Now it's, I'm not curious, but your profile pops up. Now I got to get past your profile before I even get a real sense of you. So that's an added layer. Here's another added layer. 20 years ago, the average marriaging age was closer to 24, 27, depending on your gender. That's being played and moved out now to more like 29, 31. And then it's projected in the next several years, that'll move out to mid 30s. Here's what that means. You're staying single a lot longer. So that means you'll spend more time dating and sifting through. And so being in the virtual world, you have to develop more of a toughness, more of a willingness to have that time be spread out, because you're going to be dating more people over that time. So being online, the biggest challenge is, how do I get to know you? And one of the things I've observed, and I've married over 400 couples and walked with far more than that. One of the things that I've noticed is, especially with long distance relationships, the failure rate, and this is my guesstimation, the failure rate on a long-term relationship where you're not in the city for at least 6 months before you get married is somewhere in the 80 percentile. And again, this is my own personal experience, as small a sample is in fact, I will not marry people who have a long distance relationship if they're not going to spend 6 months in the same locale, getting to know each other personally. So what you're really doing is prolonging the period of getting to know each other personally. So the caveat to that would be, I wouldn't make a commitment to somebody I'm not in the same zip code with for a substantial period of time. So that would be my warning, global warning for that. So I don't have a problem with it, but as the game changes, you need to change your game.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Good.
All right, so Sonia, you had a question?
Yes, my question is, am I responsible with assisting someone and getting past their past hurts?
Once you make the commitment, yes. So then what do I need to do? I need to be assessing what I call, do we have matching baggage? Because I can't assist you if what you're going through is my trigger.
That's
So I'm just going to throw this out there because we're keeping it real, right? So if my trigger is liars, I shouldn't be walking with a liar. If my trigger is cheaters, if my trigger is irresponsible, then I shouldn't be walking with the irresponsible. So what I'm really looking for is matching baggage, because we both are going to bring baggage. The question is, between the two of us, can we carry that baggage without renting one of those carts to carry it? So that's really the process that I'm going through. I'm watching to see if what you do triggers me and how deeply does that trigger me, because our conflict and our relationship, it's going to struggle around if, you know, you're a flirt and I'm jealous. That's a bad combination. So while I am here to help you walk through your stuff, I need to be capable of knowing what I can show mercy to and what I can't.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, so Sandra had a question.
Yeah, I also have a two-part question. Mine is it really difficult to start off being friends, or is it true that a man cannot be friends without a woman?
Men can absolutely be friends with women. It just depends on the man, but they can absolutely be friends. I'm doing this show today because I have a female friend named Bridgette Bentley. Otherwise, I'm not doing this show. I have a lot of close female friends. The key is you have to have healthy boundaries to have those healthy friendships. And the notion that you can't be a friend to somebody that you wind up loving, I can tell you from 25 years of marriage, we don't have a marriage based on sex. We have a marriage based on our friendship. And there are times where if I didn't have the friendship, I'd have walked. If she didn't have the friendship, she'd have walked. But the notion that the romantic stuff is going to keep you together is delusional at the highest level.
Thank you. Thank you.
That part 1 and 2, or did I?
Yeah.
All right, Carrie had a question for you, Pastor Bill.
Bill, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, man.
Good. Okay, so you've been at this for a while. Like you said, you've married over 400 couples, counseled countless others. So it's safe to say you're well versed in this space. So over the time that you've been dealing with singles and counseling them, what would you say are the top 2 or 3 dynamics that you continue to run into when it comes to men and women that they just can't seem to get right?
I can tell you what number 1 is clearly.
Okay.
I am amazed at singles' ability to live in their own head. That still just blows me away. That their ability to have an entire relationship in their head and not in reality. And to trust what they're saying to themselves without getting clarity from the person they're actually with. Here's the other thing that amazes me. I am amazed by how much we trust getting information about the other gender from our own gender. That too blows me away. And I hate to be gender specific, but I'm going to help the women really be careful how much you learn about men from embittered friends. Just trust me on that. Because a hurt woman has the capacity to talk another woman out of her good thing.
Yeah.
And I've seen it. And if I hadn't seen it as a pattern, not as an outlier, but as a pattern, it would be that for men, the biggest issue would be being who you are without spending all that energy in trying to be what you think she wants. But just this is who I am, and really living by your convictions versus your need for things to be cool. And that's single and married. But that kind of carries over from singleness into marriage. So those would be my top two. And then fear, that would be the other one. The level at which we walk in fear about each other is to me amazing and astonishing, that we need to really get past the fear of what you can say and do to me. The reality is, if I handle this right, I'll recover fine no matter what happens. The goal for me would be to not overcommit myself to behavior that's not compatible with our actual commitment.
Awesome.
So I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh, dude, you went overboard on that one.
Well, I have a question from someone that is that's on my chat line, and then Eric, you had a question that you had sent in, so just be prepared after this and you can answer. You can ask that question that you sent in. One of the persons on, I won't say names, I don't even know if folks want me to say their names, but anyway, they want to know what is considered healthy boundaries.
Healthy boundaries is simply this: I will not give you what is inconsistent with our commitment. In other words, the boundaries get violated more so when I allow you privileges, favor, access that's inconsistent with what we've agreed upon is the level of commitment of our relationship. So for instance, if we're not engaged, we shouldn't be engaged in engaged behavior. So we shouldn't be sharing, if we're just dating, we shouldn't be sharing financial stuff, because we're not, if we're engaged and we're looking for marriage, now we start to look into the finances. But since we're not married, one of the boundaries would be then we're not buying a house together yet either. So it really, people get in trouble, and man, I hate to be gender specific, but more so women, because they tend to bond past where we actually are. And with men, you got to check in with us to see where we really are. Because we'll date you in a minute. And what I mean by that is, well, we didn't date. You know, we weren't like, there wasn't no official commitment. You got to get us on the record. And what I find is there's a tendency for people without good boundaries to give and offer parts of themselves that are inconsistent with the level of commitment that the relationship has demonstrated. And if you don't have that reciprocity of commitment, then your boundaries are going to be violated. And then there's the sense in which the physical boundaries. No means no. I mean, I hate to say that we even have to go into that, but there are the no's. And when I say no physically, I also mean no in terms of don't touch that, no in terms of you don't have access to that. Because if somebody doesn't respect your no, they're not going to respect you.
It's true. I'm gonna let Eric go, and then we're gonna get clarity on what dating is. So prepare yourself. This was on both male and female panels, and people.
You know, I can take the rest of the time with that.
Okay, well, look here. Look at it. Folks are awkward. But Eric, you go, and then we will try to narrow that down to a small time. But that'll be. We'll finish it in the private panel.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Eric.
So my question is, if there's an argument or disagreement and both parties are upset, whose responsibility is it to come to the table and say, hey, let's have a conversation?
Well, here's how I see a relationship. I don't do blame, I do accountability. And I believe a relationship is a conspiracy, never a crime. And what I mean by that is we're both mutually responsible for the dynamics of the relationship. The first person to reach out is always going to be the person who's the more mature or the more desperate. So that's kind of the caveat of that, is the more mature person is always the one to reach out, or the one that's just desperate and clingy is the one to reach out. So that's no one's specific responsibility, but here's what I would say. Between the two of you, you better develop a flow for that not taking long. So the issue isn't who, the issue is how long. How long can we stay mad, stay frustrated? So for instance, personal disclosure. I come from a very abusive background, and because of that, I learned to stay to myself in my head and had the capacity just to stay safe, to give the order to dive. And in terms of, I'm mad, you don't want to talk? I can do this indefinitely. I can shut down and shut out and we just be done. And what I realized is while that style kept me safe in my house growing up, it kept dysfunction in my marriage. And so I had to develop the ability to not give the order to dive when anything happened. So it's really about both the two of you growing and maturing to a place where you recognize we got stuff we got to work out. And while we're upset, scripture talks about not letting the sun go down on your wrath. And really the issue won't be so much that we're mad, it'll be what's your capacity to have a conversation with the person in your head without actually having the conversation. That's going to be the more damaging aspect of that. And what strategies have I come up with in my head about this never happening again? So there's no one person that would be responsible for that. Typically, it's going to be the more mature person reaching out, or like I said, the more desperate person, just as a matter of course. But both of us have to take responsibility for the repair of the relationship. And so you're now in the space of really 2 Timothy, the 3rd chapter, where it talks about a whole list of anger, bitter, rivalry, just characteristics. And you get somebody who's unappeasable, you get somebody who can't be satisfied, you get somebody who needs you to bow to their will. That's something else I would be looking for in that context, is when we do come together, how much effort do I have to put in terms of, quote, bowing down just to get you back into conversation and dialogue. So it's a multitude of answers to that, but the clear one would be there's no one person responsible for that.
Okay. So let's talk about this dating thing, Pastor Bill.
Hold on. Eric, did you have a follow-up? You leaned in like you had a follow-up.
Oh, well, I mean, my other question is like, I know us men, we need tips always. So what are things that you do that like you do for your wife that makes her know that you're thinking about her constantly without having to tell her?
Good luck.
You don't want to expose those.
Here's what I mean by that, Eric. And I'm glad you asked that question. There's a concept I believe in called the presupposition of goodwill, and it's tied to what psychologists call object permanency. And in a child, object permanency develops when you take a ball and roll it behind the couch and the child knows the ball is still there and will actually be comfortable with the fact that the ball didn't just disappear, it's there, so they don't freak out. So really in relationship, it's developing love constancy. And what I mean by that is we've been together long enough. There's just simply a presupposition of goodwill. So my tendency is not to go negative when I don't know, because I have the presupposition of goodwill. So I don't just automatically, somebody saw you somewhere, that, you know, what was that about? Or you were late, what was that about? And measuring everything from that negative format. But we have to be together long enough to where we learn to trust each other's love and affection for each other. But I will say this, you have to be communicating with the woman at a level that speaks to her need for ever after. Because if I don't pay the gas bill, my wife was looking at us living in darkness. But I'm looking at it from the perspective of, I didn't pay the gas bill. I paid the gas bill, lights get turned on, we cool, we move forward. That is not how women process the world. They will sit there and see that and say, okay, so what is this going to look like if we married? And what is this going to look like down the line? So you have to build enough credibility. And this is why it's so critical for men to walk with women with character, because if you don't walk with character, you create questions for the remainder of your marriage. So I don't know if that answered your follow-up, but.
Yeah, it did. Thank you, Bridgette.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, so Pastor Bill, let's cover this whole dating thing. Now, listen, when we were talking the last two shows, like I said, we had discussed dating and friendship, and then dating, and then we had brought up courting. And so if you could just clarify, in dating, let's talk about, well, you know, just simple. You know, I always say, talk to me like I'm 3.
Oh, okay.
And then
I got the quick answer.
Okay. Wait. So wait. So
yeah, go ahead.
Here it was. It was the question that made it come up really was, can you date more than one person at a time? And so you heard the no's, and then you heard yeah. So then it's about what it, you know, of course, the different answers basically constituted, well, what is dating? So
yeah, the issue is not what is dating. The issue is what's your goal.
okay.
So if I'm looking to get married, then I'm looking to narrow the pool down to 1. So the idea that I can date multiple people and find the one is delusional. But if I'm dating for companionship, if I'm just dating to hang out, and I don't really have a goal, or part of my dating strategy is I'm going to hang out with people till I find somebody that has produced enough curiosity that I'll shut down what I know about others and begin to pursue my curiosity. At that point, dating is about collecting data. That's the simplest answer. I'm dating to collect data. And the question is, am I willing to honor the information that I receive? Will I deal with the truth of what they're showing me? And so once I do that, then I enter into really what I call a 5-phase process. And again, that's a whole seminar. But it starts with curiosity, goes through choice, moves to conviction, then commitment, and then connection. That's all the way leading up to marriage. So that's the short answer of that all-day seminar.
So is the answer yeah?
The answer is not yes, and it's not no. The answer is, if you're going to date multiple people, you're taking in multiple data. Most of us can't really process that.
And of course, if we're on our quest to collect data,
Right.
Should we not communicate that to the computer that we're getting the data from?
Well, here's how I would approach that. Never assume somebody else is responsible for your choice. So yeah, it would be great if the person told me, I'm not looking to get married. I just want to hang out. I just want to kick it. That would be great for them to tell you. But what I suggest is periodically you check in, because that's how people become committed past the other person's commitment. Well, you know, hey, I've been kicking it with so-and-so for a while. We cool, we have an understanding, and we've never had a conversation. And so my idea of kicking it and your idea that we're dating is different concepts. So to me, it's checking in and knowing at the end of the day, you should never surrender your future life to somebody that you're not willing to get clarity from. So I would put it on the person to get the clarity. Otherwise, you're just a co-conspirator in somebody else's evolution.
True.
All right.
Okay, I'm looking at the different, okay, you guys, anybody else have any questions from the actual people online? And let me put it out there for
Let
those.
me be very clear. Nobody looking for a mate can date multiple people successfully, because you're going to play like you practice.
Oh.
In other words, if they practice that strategy while they're dating you, they will probably practice that strategy once they've married you.
Yikes.
You don't want that.
So just so we're clear.
Yeah, I can't deal with a man that's working a buffet. Can't do it. Got to be the main meal, and that's it. So I want you guys to, so for those that are out there watching.
Can I note off of what you just said about a man working a buffet?
Yeah.
Because there needs to be clarity for women specifically. Because here's what's significant about you said about a man working a buffet. If you put lobster in the buffet, it cheapens the lobster.
Wow.
Just process that. You put lobster in a buffet, then I don't see the lobster as being so valuable. It's like these potatoes sitting over here. It's the same thing now to me. So just something to think about.
That's good. That's so good. Okay. For those of you who are watching online, I know people were checking in and coming late and all of that. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know that this is Pastor Bill, and he is the one who is going to be, you know, we're going to be running things by and running our questions by. So if you have any questions that you just don't really have any clarity on, or maybe you got some clarity and you just want to get it confirmed, I need you to put your questions in the chat. And so that and everybody's on their phones that is on this panel. So you can just put your questions, and we're looking at our phones, and we're going to propose those questions to Pastor Donald Bell. So I have a question from someone, and they said, how important is it to be totally healed and healthy before entering a new relationship?
No one's totally healed and no one's totally healthy. Period.
Yeah.
We all bring baggage. We all bring some jacked up stuff. And here's something that people don't even process. So let me give you my kind of metaphor for what dating and marriage is, just since we asked the dating question. Dating is driving on the 405 at 2 a.m. in the morning as fast as you can for a season. Marriage is the Indianapolis 500. Just because you drive fast on the 405 doesn't mean you're ready for the Indianapolis 500. There's no way to simulate that. That's my point. Because once you're married, it's a whole nother world. And the truth behind that is you can only commit to marriage. You can't know marriage ahead of time. Because once you put somebody in the house with you who is not going home ever, That's another world. And now we are into a level of negotiation that exceeds anything in politics. And here's what I mean by that. We got to negotiate whether we sleep with the window open or the window closed. Do we sleep on the right side of the bed or the left side of the bed? Or am I so claustrophobic the bed can't be up against the wall? What time do we go to bed? Do we eat watching TV, or do we sit and have to sit at the table and eat? Are you vegan? There's just a whole host of things. And that's even before we introduce children. So, you know, who do we spend the holidays with? Are we at your mom's house? Are we at your, oh no, on the holidays, I just like to chill. I don't want to go visit nobody. I work hard and this is just my downtime. Oh no, for me, it's family and we got to be up in there. And if you don't show up for my family event, my family judges that this way and they put this guy. Marriage at so many levels. How do we grocery shop? Do we shop the week, or do we shop the month, or how do we even do? So all of these things have to be negotiated. There's no way to prepare for that. And there's no way even to know how much of your routine is symbolic to the fact that the way you shop triggers me.
There's those triggers again.
I like shopping at night when the store is empty.
Yes.
I didn't know that would be a triggering point because all the fresh vegetables are gone. You know, I mean, and we can do it.
That's so true.
So it's so many dynamics. You're not getting healed. And here's the other thing about it, and I hate to say it. Not only are you not coming into it healed, but you're coming into it and you're going to be damaged some more. That's the reality of it. Two humans, constant contact is going to produce hurt. So then it's another question of how well do you reconcile? How well are you able to negotiate through conflict? And this goes back to Eric's question. What's your reach out time? What's your turnaround time for being able to pivot? Okay, so I'm late for our date. Can you pivot so we can salvage the evening? Or do we need to go on this mandatory date now with your jaw tight the whole night? You can't pivot. So yeah, the notion of wholeness and what the issue really is, how do two broken people live together in their brokenness and have enough mercy and grace for each other? But nobody's getting healed. There's this notion of healing. Death heals us.
Wow.
Wow.
Well,
Yeah.
Wow.
Like,
wow.
Yeah.
Well, you don't see that on the
Yeah, that ain't
romantic
on the-
soap operas.
Yeah.
The romantic soap operas. I guess that's the stuff they go through during the commercials, because the romantic soap operas they never go shopping. So
Yeah.
you never see that fight.
Got niggas and butlers do
that.
Yeah. So again, and again, this is the mythology we've built around dating. That, oh, I'm gonna find the one, you know, or I'm gonna be found by the one, which is a whole nother biblical mythology. That you know, hide and a man will find you, and yeah, I'm sorry, I'm getting off track.
That's good.
No.
dude, you right there.
Let's go there.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Bet on that one.
Let's go there.
That
Yeah,
is
see,
mythology.
Yeah, yeah, we can wait. We can wait on that one.
Yeah, that whole thing of he who findeth the wife findeth the good thing, and that means you got to be found. Well, let me tell you, guys aren't searching that hard. We're not looking for something hidden. We're looking for something that we can pretty much find out in the open. And this notion that, well, the guy has to find the girl. misses the whole context of the scripture. It's a mom talking to a son about how blessed he is to have a woman in his life. That God has blessed you for having a woman in there. It's not a prescription for how women are to posture themselves to get married. That part is delusional. And it's out of context biblically.
Okay, so when is it?
Come out wherever you want.
Oh my Lord. Okay, so two, on that note, I don't even need nobody's question for that. Listen, so when is it? Let's talk about this pursuing thing. When it comes down to when is it now a woman pursuing a man as opposed to, is that okay? Let's just start there.
Well, I don't look at the term pursue as much as I look at exploring your curiosity. Our attractions are literally curiosities. I see something that I think could be a bunch of something else. I'm curious off of the something I can see. So my curiosity is sparked. I then explore my curiosity, and I don't see anything unbiblical about any gender exploring their curiosity. But again, the problem comes when you commit to your curiosity before your curiosity is clarified.
Mm.
So yeah, if a woman's interested in somebody, I don't see a problem in expressing interest.
Okay, so they
Now,
are not.
you can be overboard in all kinds of ways in expressing that curiosity. You should use wisdom in expressing that curiosity. But the notion that, I mean, the 1950s something notion that, you know, women should be just, you know, lucky to be found is, yeah, delusional.
I think they're just freed about 2,000 people.
Yeah, well,
That just freed some folks right there. Some ladies have been freed. You talk about women that are loosed. It's some folks that's real loosed right now.
Think
That
about
one
this.
particular state.
When you look at Proverbs 31 and all that whole list, what you find is a woman who's conducting business.
Yeah.
She isn't just a wife, she's conducting business. The assumption would be she's always been business minded. So whenever dude found her, she was already doing business because she's business minded. And here's what we know: you don't get married and become business minded. So she was that already. She was industrious already. So you need to be where you need to be, and somebody just needs to come across where you are supposed to be. That's my take. You know, now other disciplines of the faith will teach different things. That's not me. Because if I'm looking to form a partnership with somebody, I want them to have some aspect of being able to handle their business.
And so a relationship is her business that she's handling.
Yeah. So for her to be a partner, I need to know she knows how to handle her own business, her own life, and manage that, because if she's going to share life with me, a part of that is going to be able to share our collective business. And again, she has as much, well, let me say this: a woman has a right to pursue at the level that she plans to invest. So if I'm looking to invest my life in somebody else's life, then I have a right to make decisions around that.
Okay, well, I don't want to just free the women. I also want to free the guys with that. So you got guys that's a turnoff. They're so.
Then find another woman and take care of her at the level that satisfies and affirms your weak ego.
Oh, Lord, today.
Whoa.
Oh, Lord, today. Okay. All right. Okay, so you
The
had
beauty
mentioned
of
the
this
word.
is I already have a church supporting me, so I don't have to impress anybody.
Right. That's
That's
true.
fine. That's
So I
that's
can
that.
just tell the truth, because what you're talking about is a guy that needs a woman broken so he can feel good about himself.
Mm.
That's what you're really describing, is some guy who's going to be affirmed because he's taking care of a woman. I'd rather be in a relationship where I'm affirmed by the way we take care of each other than the way I take care of you, because heaven forbid I wind up needing you more than me in terms of what I can produce. So let's say something happens and I have an accident and I can't continue the job for whatever reason. I can't keep you in the way that I saw myself keeping you.
Okay.
Then what do? Who am I in that marriage?
Right.
Right.
You know, how does that marriage survive?
Yeah.
So there has to be a sense in which, and again, just from a biblical standpoint, marriage is supposed to look like the way Christ and the Father relate to one another. Is any one of them more dependent on the other? Or theologically, do we believe they're all one, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit? So if we're modeling that partnership looks like give and take between all of them, and there's no argument about status.
Okay.
Ooh,
Oh,
nice.
wow. Thank you.
Say that, Donald.
Okay.
So,
Regina, you had a question?
Yes, one of my viewers is asking, how do you transition from being married 27 years and losing your soulmate, your best friend, and getting back into the dating field?
here's the key. You gotta grieve. You gotta grieve. And you gotta put that into a context where you're ready to move forward. And essentially, what grieving to me is if somebody walked into your office and turned over all your files and left them on the floor, you got to sit with each one of those files and decide where they need to go moving forward. And the reality is you probably won't put all the files back in the exact place that they were, because when you filed them back then, you were in a different mindset. So that's, to me, is the grieving process. It's taking all the files that have been dumped in the middle of the room. And it isn't just grieving the death, it's grieving the no more whatevers, no more parties. So that's going to take, honestly, statistically, that's going to take about 2 years, because you need to cycle back around all the seasons at least twice to be in a place where you've come to terms with it. So statistics say for both divorce and death, if you don't wait 24 months minimum, you're looking at anywhere in the high 80s for that relationship not working out.
Okay.
So it starts with grieving.
Okay. All right. Tiffany had a question.
This one's from Facebook from Miss J. She asks, is it okay to still have a list when it comes to dating criteria? If so, what should be on the list and how extensive should the list be?
I'm not a believer in lists. I'll just start with that. And here's why. Because a list really gives you something to regret later. Because invariably, let's say you have a list of 10, and I find 8 out of the 10. And the 2 issues that drive me crazy and really produce the stress in our relationship are the 2 things not on my list that they didn't qualify for. All the list is going to do is really reinforce my judgment of this person. So I don't believe you can successfully work from a list, because no one's showing up as a list. Now, should you have some things that are non-negotiable? Yes. You should have some things that are non-negotiable. Must not ever lay hands on me, non-negotiable. So yeah, there's just some human dignity stuff. But the truth of the matter is, once you marry somebody, you're committed to the whole them. And Alyssa's not going to help you. And here's just as a footnote, most of the people who wind up in crisis around something they tell me this: I didn't sign up for this. And this is the thing they never saw coming. So you can have a list of 10, but when you get married, they're going to show you 11, 12, and 13, and 14. And the question now is not what do you do with 1 through 10, it's what do you do with 11, 12, 13, and 14. So a list promotes the delusion that you can know before you actually do, and you can't. And a lot of marriage is the ability to pivot. So I'll give you an example. Let's say my brother, who's 10 years older than I, he was married to his wife for 30 years. In year 3, he found out she had an illness that was supposed to take her life in 6 months. She wound up living out to them being married for 30 years, but having that illness affect every aspect of their life for the remainder of that time. How would that list have helped him? Because there's just stuff you can't account for. So the notion of a list is, yeah, great. You know, I want over 6 feet. Over 6 feet can be crazy. You know, so what are we doing? I just don't believe in working from a list. I believe that the only real thing I should be looking at is my dignity is non-negotiable. And my personal commitments. And so what I'm looking for is not a list, but I'm looking for somebody who can complement my convictions with compatible convictions. Do we share convictions? That's more of a thing that I'd be looking for. So if I serve the Lord and that's the centerpiece of my life, and you don't serve the Lord, that's not a religious debate. That's an area of my life that's deeply intimate and personal to me that we can't share. That's the issue.
So, okay, this one is how successful are second marriages?
The statistics on those, and I don't have them in front of me, but second marriage, well, we start at 50-50. Second marriage, if I remember, goes to 65. Third marriage goes to 70, and you don't want to know about the one after that.
And that's
failure rate.
Failure. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Why is that?
Because you probably haven't solved the problems that were the issues in the first one, and you come back with the second one, now having a history of pulling the eject button. It just becomes easier to pull the eject button again.
Yeah.
So one of the things I tell couples when they're in crisis, think long and hard about the notion that you're going to upgrade to a better situation. You're already struggling with a 50-50 proposition. How do you think you're going to do 65? Or how do you think you're going to do a 75-25 proposition? So it's usually better if you can work out the 50-50 proposition. Just dealing with the sheer numbers. We ain't even bringing the Lord into it.
Oh, wow.
But if I remember correctly, it's 50-50, 65, 75, and then 90 something.
Wow. Okay, this young lady wanted to know, how do you start over as a mature, seasoned woman after being in an abusive relationship? So much less to choose from, I guess, at her age.
Yeah, it's not even a question of choosing at that point. It's about understanding why I compromised my dignity to be in the conspiracy that was my previous relationship. Because typically the people who stay in those relationships have an impoverished mentality in terms of what they deserve, what they should have. And their personal dignity has been damaged at such a depth that they probably have turned down healthy relationships and didn't even know it. So that really is about going and getting the help I need to restore my dignity before I would even look at dating somebody else. Because your abuse radar is still intact. You put 100 men in a room and one of them's an abuser, you'll sift them out. So it's about getting the healing for your dignity in that. And that, not to contradict myself from earlier, when I say healing at that point, I mean baseline and getting back to baseline. And baseline is simply getting back to a place where I have my own personal dignity, that I recognize that I'm created in the image of God and my value is intrinsic, not appraised.
Nice.
Good. Okay, I think Regina, you have somebody who has a question? Okay.
Yes, I have a young lady that's asking, is talking to my ex, who is my son's father, wrong if I desire to find a God-fearing man?
Well, it depends on what you mean by talking to your ex, but here's what I will tell you. A God-fearing man will have grace for the fact that you've been in another relationship and that you have a child from that relationship. But if they don't sense that the priority lies with your partnership with them, you're going to have problems. And also, I would not necessarily trust my own personal judgment on how much I should be talking to an ex. That I would want wise counsel on that, because typically what I've found is there's generally, and I get, there's things we have to negotiate in terms of childcare. If you're talking about that, then it's a non-issue. But if you're talking about talking to like we cool, the brother's gonna have a problem with that. Saved and unsaved, by the way.
Tiffany, did you have a question or you just forgot to put the hand down?
No, I did have actually
Okay.
there's 2 questions. So
Okay, go ahead.
one is, should Christians get prenups?
All a prenup is an agreement on how it's going to fail. And here's what I will tell you. There's no safe way to do dangerous. So I get the prenup, so in case it ends, I'm covered. Well, the prenup's not going to help you with that. And if you have the suspicion that you need a prenup, you probably shouldn't marry that person.
Shouldn't marry him, right?
Because here's the thing. You're asking them to invest fully in you with you withholding what you'll invest. If you found the right person, they're going to fully invest in you. So let's say you get a prenup and you've got a house worth, say, $1 million. It's just being arbitrary. So then if they get $1 million a year into the relationship, can you write a prenup that, protects that million for them? It gets ridiculous,
Right.
Well, no, and I know this because I had this conversation with a woman who wanted me, back when I was looking for a wife, she wanted me to sign a prenup because she had just bought her house and she was fearful I would take her house. And here was my understanding of it. I'm coming in and I'm fully investing in your life and we're sharing in everything. You get the benefit of all the blessings in my life in terms of my ability to do relationships and socialize and some of the advantages that go with that. So here's what I told her. I said, well, let's set the number of your house. And then let's say I build a savings, you can't touch my savings to that same equal amount.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And she lost her mind.
I know she did. She was like,
I said, well, I'm just
whoa.
going to protect myself like you.
She was like, whoa, 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 wait a
Right.
minute, what you saying?
Right. And so what I'm saying is, and what I wanted to point out to her is, here's the problem. You are trying to not bring everything into this marriage and have it be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Well, what if I feel like that emotionally?
Yeah.
There's just some stuff I ain't dealing with you on. And I'm not going to emotionally share it with you because, you know, in case this doesn't work.
Here's my
I don't want to
prenup.
be damaged emotionally.
Right.
So if we
I
get into a real
I
problem,
can't handle
I'm shutting down and
crying.
ain't talking. Just in case, you know, it makes no sense to me. And it speaks to a level of materialism that we've sunk to, because here's the thing, and I get it, you know, we all want to be careful and we all want as many, you know, barriers and safeties as we can put in, but here's the problem with that. So you're saying your house is the thing you care about when I'm gonna be lying in the bed with you on a regular?
Right.
That's not more precious to you? The damage that can be done in that? You know, that's the thing you protected. So if I can let you lie with me, I should be able to put my house up too, because I'm essentially naked and open before you. And again, I'm gonna say this as a theme. There's no safe way to do dangerous. If they find you slumped over in your car and you're married, do you know the first person they want to talk to?
Mhm.
Is your spouse, and that's not for notification. They want to talk to them because they're wondering, okay, well, who would be the first person most likely? It's going to be the spouse. So there's no safe way to do dangerous.
Right.
All right.
And that's what a prenup is the delusion of control and prevention. And trust me, if somebody wants to get you, they will marry you, stay married to you long enough to get you.
Okay. He'll be gone already, emotionally gone.
Yeah. So yeah, if somebody's that foul, that's just gonna go down like that.
Did you have another question, Tiffany?
Yeah, and then the other question is, you know, a lot of times as women, we're always hearing about, you know, men have fragile egos. So my question is, how responsible are women for men's ego?
Here's the principle with a man. The ego is fragile, but it's his work to grow it. So here's the principle. Always tell the truth in love. Just that simple. Be authentic and just tell the truth in love. And let them figure it out. Let them grow, let them struggle.
Thank you.
Here's a question is, how soon should I introduce a man to my children?
We're back to what's the level of commitment. And part of this is, there's a part of it that's protecting the children, but there's a part of it where you're going to have the dialogue with your children about this is just a part of the process. Mom's going to be dating, and in dating, you know, eventually I will bring somebody into the home in terms of you meeting them. So I think it's personal with each individual to set their criteria, but the problem when we violate God's order for whatever reason, our circumstances knock God's order out, where it's not mom and dad raising the kids. There's cost not just to the couple, there's cost generationally. And what that means is the kids don't get to have the extended grace of innocence. So you wind up having to have these adult conversations with your children ahead of time. The real issue isn't how soon should I introduce them, it's how well have you prepared them for the potential that they may not be permanent.
You walk in and go, now he's not permanent, y'all. But this is Bob.
Again, and what I mean by that is, if you haven't taught your children how to grieve, they're probably already damaged around the fact that dad isn't around. So bringing another dad in is not going to damage them any more than that. So it's about really teaching them how to grieve and how to process. And again, that's whether it's divorce or whether it's death. You have to have processed with them the loss of their original dad. It's that skill that insulates them from the damage of if this relationship doesn't work out. And again, we're looking at now from 50-50 to 65.
Well, this tags on that too. So let's say that now you like them, you get married, and the child seems to be torn because the dad that they have is in their life, and now this is a new leader, I guess. So how do you prepare them to be able to handle both in a situation and not go, I'm gonna tell my daddy?
That's going to be on mom to set boundaries on that behavior. And those boundaries have to start early on in that. And then you need to really send some clear messages to your ex about the decision for us to not live in the same household comes with some very specific boundaries about running this household. And if you're not clear about those boundaries, an ex is going to intrude at the level that you haven't set boundaries.
Yeah. Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
so you will have already communicated that they can run your house. And that's male and female. I've seen women run houses from a distance. I've seen exes run house. And typically that means there's a whole lot of unresolved stuff there too.
Right.
Which is a whole nother seminar.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. Okay, just let me go again because I see people jumping in and out. If you guys have any questions, singles questions out there that you wanted to kind of bring to the table, to the panel, to Pastor Bell, you are welcome to put those questions in the chat. All of us are on our phones, so no matter whose page you're friends with, if you see that person on this particular page or on this particular panel, then they can see their chat. So you are welcome to do that. Now, in the interim of us getting some more questions, I'm just going to propose some things to Pastor Bell. So let's talk about the whole singles life. You know, this singles life, Christian singles life is, what should we be doing in this season? I'll just put it like that. I don't want to sit back and put words in your mouth.
Yeah, what a single person really should be focused on at this point, I'll go scriptural first. From a scriptural standpoint, what Paul says is that singles and the value of your singleness is this is a time you can serve the Lord at a level of devotion and dedication and sacrifice that's higher than when you get married. So to me, and this is kind of my soapbox, so I'm gonna climb up on it. The thing when I look at churches to me tend to be structured biblically upside down when it comes to singles. Here's what I mean. All of the honors and things that really go into the church are really tied to some aspect of marriage. We have the weddings at the church. We have the baby dedications and all of these great things for married people. But Paul says it's better that you don't marry because as long as you can put that off, you have more opportunity to be devoted to the Lord. And so one of the things I did that I believe was part of our success with the singles ministry was I put a big emphasis on the most accomplishment you're going to have in serving the Lord is going to be during your singleness. So now is the time to really emphasize what are you going to do to help advance the kingdom? Because here's the thing. If I stood up on a Wednesday night when we had the Bible study and I said, hey, I need 20 volunteers, I need 20 men to meet me on Saturday, got something we need to do. The interesting thing is if the room is filled with single people and the room is filled half with married people, the men in the room have to consult with their wives as to whether they can do it. Where The single men just need to decide that they can do it. So what I'm saying is there's a season that you can really devote to the service of the Lord. And one of the things I challenged people to do was build a life that somebody will discover that you are having. Don't be waiting for somebody to come and then we're going to get married and then we're going to start our life. So, you know, I encouraged people to go back to school, because if you're going back to school after you married, that's not going to work. So we got a lot of people to finish up degrees and advanced degrees and things like that. So I'm all about singles going for life and having a full life, because I can tell you, before I was married, I adopted my niece. And after I adopted my niece, my every answer to anybody was, what am I going to do with the baby? That was my answer to every answer to every question started with, well, what am I going to do with my baby? And it's the same thing in terms of marriage. It just gets, you know, amplified. So to me, singleness, the church really should be emphasizing and encouraging singles to live out the fullness of their call, because it's going to get capped when you get married. I mean, there's scripture related to don't ask married people to do stuff. I mean, there's actual scripture that says that. So to me, it was more about singles and what God wanted to do with them. And, you know, I'm going to say this, and I don't want to sound like I'm bragging, but I am telling the truth. The singles ran the church after a while. Mm-hmm. Which is kind of upside down for most churches. But everything we did, they were a volunteer army. And that to me, and what happened is when they got married, they were used to serving. So they had already served. They knew how to serve. So singleness was a great time to practice that aspect of it.
So why do you think the churches, you know, singles ministries are rare? You know, yeah. They are rare, if not non-existent. The only time singles usually get any kind of acknowledgement in the church is usually either a reprimand,
yeah,
or when they need to say something funny.
Yeah,
you know, it's either a joke.
Because most churches single shame. In fact, one of the things we did as a actual strategy was our singles ministry wasn't called the singles ministry. We avoided using that word like the plague, not because there's anything wrong with it, but because people who self-identified as single, they always were thought of as desperate. Mm-hmm. So we called it SALT, which was an acronym. You know, so it was called the SALT ministry, and I went after anybody who called it a singles ministry because I knew just the term. Think about it, singles club. Oh, bunch of desperate people, you know, bunch of needy people, bunch of people who can't find nobody. And then, you know, the friends who get married look back and like, you're still in, you know, the unclean club. You know, you haven't received your anointing. This marriage is a special anointing. No, it's not. People get married and live their marriages exactly like they were when they were single. Players are still players. Flirts are still flirts. Cheaters are still cheaters. There's no, you know, when you get to the altar and you stand before the pastor, I'm not putting a special anointing on you. Now go and be different. That's not happening. So if you've not lived a full life prior to that, you will be looking for somebody to fill in the holes of the life you didn't live. And honestly, it's my belief that most people's divorces are tied to how they handled dating while they were single.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it seems like one of the things that I've noticed is that when it comes to the whole marriage thing, now all of a sudden it's a representation of Christ and the church. You know, it's such a godly season. And then with singleness, as you mentioned, and I'll just reiterate this, is that it's like the time where you must not be fully saved.
Right.
Because if so, the reward for being saved and anointing and fulfilling your call and doing a good job. So the reward from God is a husband, is a wife.
Yeah,
Like that's the
very-
reward
Yeah,
for doing a good job. But I
that's
do know that if that was the case, it's a lot of people throwing away their trophies.
yeah, there it is. There it is. Are not happy with their trophies. So what God says is, if you're faithful over a few things, I'll make you ruler over many. So in other words, it's progressive responsibility and progressive in terms of your stewardship. That may be marriage, that may be a whole lot of other things. It could be an advancement in your career. It could be an advancement in something that you're devoted to. It doesn't have to be that it follows that it's marriage. And again, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be married, but there is something wrong with wanting the marriage to fix you and to make you whole and to make you complete. If you don't have a holy union with God, you're not going to have a holy union with your spouse.
Right.
That's just real. And again, I'm back to you will play like you practice. Yeah. Unsatisfied single people make unsatisfied married people.
Bridget, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, so one of the persons on my watch party, she says, and she's asking the question, how do you manage or navigate a situation when the child does not like the new woman in her father's life?
Okay, let me see if I got this. Now, the who's navigating it? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
So it sounds like it's a divorced couple.
Okay.
And they share a child together.
Okay,
that
so divorced couple shares a child together.
Right. So that child is not feeling the new woman that the child's dad is seeing.
Okay, so I'm assuming this is from the mom's perspective.
That's correct.
So how does she navigate that?
Exactly.
She encourages him, the child, to explore his relationship with his dad, and she says nothing negative about the woman. And she owns the fact that collectively, me and your dad could not figure a relationship out. So some of this is on me and some of it's on him as to why he's in this position. But you're going to need to work that out with your dad. And I encourage your dad to make the choices that works for him.
Okay.
That's how I would handle it.
Okay.
I got a quick question. So how about the boundaries from the man meeting a woman and the woman having a child, in regards to the boundaries of the man, like building that with the child before, as if it's just a friendship and dating first, or even just the beginning? Is it just like you go as you are in your same intentions as the relationship, or do you hold back a little bit just in case that there's a break, like so it's not as hard?
Again, it goes back to, I'm going to invest in your child at the level we're invested in each other. I'm going to invest in all of your family at the level we're invested in each other. So if we're in the early stages of dating, I'm not picking your child up from school. That's not the level of commitment we have. Now, if we're engaged and we're looking at building a life together, then that's a possibility of me picking up your child from school. But you have to understand that this is a process, not an event. We have to be going through and building a process. And what winds up happening is most people either try to accelerate the process or withhold because of fear. And really, it's about how much trust are we building one with another, and does this behavior match the level of trust and commitment we have in one another? And again, when somebody chooses not to be with you, they are choosing to lose influence over who you're going to be with. And there's nothing wrong with having dialogue that includes the kids. Okay, so when we've made a deeper commitment about this relationship, we're dating exclusively, maybe we need to sit down and have the conversation about this is your boundaries in terms of discipline and those types of things. Those conversations need to be had. But the real issue is producing as much clarity as possible. It's not the rules, it's not the principles, it's the clarity. So because we have these extra dynamics within our relationship, because we're not just two single people, we got children, then we need to have more dialogue and more conversation about how do we integrate, if we're moving along, how do we integrate you into this? How do I integrate myself into your life? But that's where we got to be able to trust each other enough to not live off expectations, but to actually have tough conversations. Because my experience is it's the expectations and fear that creates the conflict. But when you sit and talk about, you know, kind of what our flow is. So for instance, several couples that I've walked with, as they were coming together, they both had children and they both had different disciplining styles. And one of the things I tried to encourage them to do was to understand the other's discipline style. And they didn't do it. And consequence of when you get married, I'm handling my child one way and your child another way. That's just not going to work. But if these are things we cannot negotiate and talk about and get clarity on prior to getting married, you shouldn't get married, because you're just going to damage your kids and damage yourself.
Good. Let's see. This one said, or Eric, ask your own question, babe.
I have a question. It kind of goes into what you were just saying. Do you see with single women that the father is not involved? Do you see that women have a hard time allowing the man to lead because they're so used to being like both
running it?
Yeah, like running it. And that's, I mean, do you see that quite a bit or no?
Yeah. That's the short answer to your question is yeah. Because again, I'm back to you play like you practice. If I'm used to running the whole thing and not running it by somebody, when we get married, I'm going to struggle to running it by you.
Right.
Which is, again, the more conversation we have leading up to this about what does this look like and what is this, you know, and again, here's some of the challenge. Not only may the father have not been in the picture, she may not have a reference for fathering.
Mhm.
You know, so it's not just, you know, that I don't have a father in my child's life. I don't even know what fathering looks like. So in my situation with my wife and my son, we're married, we have this child. It really wasn't until he was about 20 that she realized the value of my hand on his life at the level I had it on him. Because, you know, I heard the whole time, well, you're mean, you know, you're just mean. And this, no, I'm preparing him for some stuff. He has to be able to do hard and not be sorry. And she and I fought on it. And that was my blood quote son. And we were still having that debate. I've got another friend that I've counseled that his relationship is damaged. He stepped into that relationship before the son was even a year old. He's been with the mom ever since then. They've been married. She never gave him the freedom to be the kid's dad. And now, you know, as a grown person, the kid is looking at him like he's crazy. Well, a part of that is, and now we're back to some of the non-negotiables. A man coming into that situation needs to know what his non-negotiable is relative to him being a father in that child's life. Because I couldn't have been with the woman raising her son and I'm watching Sorry develop and just stand by. I just can't. I can't. I can't.
Right.
I can't do that with my friends who are female. You know what I'm saying? So that I know about myself and I have to own it. So if I were marrying somebody who had a son specifically, and we're just using that as an example, some of that would be the case. If I'm marrying somebody as a man and they've got a daughter, and I'm looking at how you're letting your daughter dress, as a man, I need to have access to influence about, nah, we ain't leaving out. Because I know how dudes think. I know the message that that's sending. We're not even talking about fit. We're just talking about is at this point. So it's how much are you going to let them in? And here's a way to see it spiritually. If I were to marry a woman with children, I'm assuming I'm part of God's plan to be a father to the fatherless. And that I'm part of the grace that God is bringing into that life. There's a certain level of access I'm gonna need to really show that grace. And if we can't partner in the raising of the kids, it's still going to be the same conflict if we start having kids of our own. The only difference is I'm going to be much more emboldened when my son comes along than your son. And now it's going to look like I'm playing favorites.
Mm-hmm. Okay, one of the questions was presented is, why do the saints want to be married prior to having stable employment and income? How successful can that be?
Well, the reason why they want to get together is because they want to get together. Again,
we call it smash here.
Here's the thing about that.
Oh, no.
Let me just put this out there. I'm not trying to police other people's relationships. If y'all want to get married and y'all don't have stable economics,
Right.
God bless you, as grown people. You know, I'm not policing that. But if you come to me for counsel, then we may need to address that.
Right.
But if you're not coming to me for counsel, I'm not trying to judge how to you guys come together. Let me say, I've been at this long enough to say there's some relationships I looked at and said, that'll never work, and they figured it out. And then there's some I looked at and I was like, oh man, love the Lord, both committed, both got jobs. And here's what it produced. It produced a lot of work for the lawyers when they divorced.
Mhm.
It just did. So there's a point to this. I do you know. Grown people get to do what they want.
Right.
Now, here's all I ask. Don't come at me with the complaints around it when you done chose it.
Right.
You know, now is not the time to give me the spiritual take on it. Because if you had married biblically, you'd have a biblical situation. So don't start telling me they're not biblical. Well, you didn't marry the Bible.
Right. Nor the Bible way.
Okay.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You know, so now you're telling me, you come into my office, now you're telling me Ephesians says they should have been this. You didn't marry Ephesians.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So show some grace for what you chose.
Right.
I mean, you chose it here.
So again, I don't like the fact that we do a lot of judging people around what they got together and what they don't have together. Here's what I know about marriage, and I'm going to say it again. It isn't 1 through 10 that's going to trip you up. It's not the known. It's 11, 12, 13, and 14. The stuff you didn't count on. That's the stuff that's going to trip you up. When me and my wife got married, I could barely get her gold, not a ring, gold. Our 10th year anniversary, I was able to drop a significant amount of money and bought her 2 rings. You know, that's where we were.
Baller.
Okay. So do you think that people should announce their engagement or start making plans prior to marital counseling?
If marital counseling is to do, and this is historical, I know this answer, so I'm not speculating. At a point, we stopped people from doing marital counseling who had a date. And here's why.
Oh, nice.
If you got a date, all we are is a stamp, and you come into that class and you ain't paying no attention.
Ain't paying attention, right?
There's like, oh, we so in love. What you saying is never going to happen to us because we've already agreed we will not let the sun go down on our wrath. And we pray every night and this and that. Yeah, the praying through everything is great till one of you don't want to pray because I'm that mad.
Right.
So, yeah, they just want the rubber stamp. One of the things that I believe made the marriages for that season of singleness, the number that were successful, and in our church, it's closer to 90 something in terms of the marriages working. One of the reasons why is I think they've gotten the same teaching consistently. So it's almost like, and the way I teach, I tend to give definitions for things so that the definition is shared by everybody in the room. So if I use the term partnership, I will define what a partnership is so that when I ask you to partner with me on something, we both have a joint understanding of that. And so I think it's important to have that dynamic. And so this goes back to the whole question of when I'm dating on the internet and stuff like that. If we don't share a common language with a common understanding, we can be talking about the same thing and not be talking about the same thing. So I think it's real important for people to have a shared understanding, to be able to have that dialogue. And again, shared convictions and shared principles around these things. And most of us, when we're in love, we don't want to put that much effort into checking to see if they're a real problem.
Right.
So we, basically told people, if you're going to date, when you realize it's serious, sign up for premarital, even if you may not get married.
Right.
Because our job is to try to get you to not get married if you really get married.
Mm-hmm.
I know that sounds paradoxical, but it's to challenge you.
Well, it's funny because I've seen it too, just because I sing at weddings and I will get a request to sing at a wedding and it's 6, 7, 8 months ahead of time. And I'm like, wow, I sure hope I'm alive, but okay, I'll do you. I'll sing at your wedding if I'm alive. This is really advanced. And then, and in conversation, I will ask, so how's it going? And they're like, well, we got the church, we got the house, we got this, we got that, we got this, we got this, and the dresses and da-da-da-da. And then we got to go to marriage counseling.
Yeah, like that's an added, got to find the photographer and, oh yeah, we can't get nobody to do it unless we have marriage.
DJ and then counseling, right?
Yeah. Or we got to find somebody to marry us, but they require that we go to marriage counseling. Okay.
Well, let me throw you a curve. At a point in the season, I wouldn't marry anybody I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's add this since people are listening to this whole process, because some people are going, I got to go to marriage counseling. But at the end of marriage counseling, you would give your beliefs at the end, and you would not marry people, correct?
Yeah. I've told people no, and I've watched them go to Vegas and be mad at me for about 6 or 7 months before sneaking a call in to see if they could get an appointment. I'm dead serious. I'm not lying about this. I had one couple come to me and I'm counseling them, and we're on our last day of counseling. And the guy says, I got one question. What should I do about the fact that, you know, she throw them things? I'm like, what? Yeah, she gets busy with the hands. This was the future wife.
She's a fighter.
Oh, yeah, she get mad and throw them things.
That's that song. Try
yeah.
Jesus. Don't try
and
me.
I said,
Don't try me.
you know, clearly I'm not marrying you. And here's what I said. Do you need to go to anger management counseling for 6 weeks, 6 weeks worth of anger management counseling? And then I need a written summary assessment from the anger management counselor about where you are at that point. And then we'll talk about your marriage moving forward.
Interesting.
He waited to the last day.
Once, male and female. This has happened more than once. And because here's my belief, you're going to come across something. I want to know how willing you are to address it, because that's really what your marriage is going to be survival about. Because I can't figure out what 11, 12, and 13 and 14 is for you ahead of time, but I can make some assessments about your strategy for addressing problems, and especially ones as serious as that. So in a couple of cases, they went and did the counseling, and the summary was, oh, they need some work. So I'm not marrying you. Some assess, I believe we've gotten at the issue that reaches, again, a baseline state. Or they'd recommend further counseling. And then I had those who were like, yeah, you know how that Vegas is just not far from here. And we're gonna go do Vegas. And so they'd run up on me in the parking lot and look, we got married and I'm supposed to be happy. I got a backstage pass to your issues. I can't be happy. I've seen how the sausage is made. I can't eat that. So, you know, you try to be hopeful, prayerful, but there's some stuff it really is what it actually is.
Yeah.
And so again, if the pattern is we're not going to address deep truth, then we're going to have deep problems. And
this person, I'm sorry, baby. Go ahead.
So
this person
the
wants
premarital helps with that.
Okay. Well, I've seen it done that way. That whole, you know, people don't do it like that. By the time they're getting the counseling, there's a fabulous dress that there's a big deposit on.
Oh yeah.
And then they get to the point where they're like, well, I can't cancel this wedding. There's so many people involved.
If I told you the number of men that I'm standing in the back with who have that look like I know I shouldn't be doing this. And I'm like, dude, you just tell me. I don't have no shame. I'll walk right out there now and say, we're just going to move into the party phase because we're going to celebrate good judgment. I ain't got a problem with it.
Everybody cake for everybody.
About difficult choices.
Oh my God.
And if somebody is showing the courage to make a choice like that, I will celebrate you more than I would you getting married. And I've never seen a marriage work where that look was in the groom's eye. And same thing when I've talked to women. And that last counseling session for women is usually, if things are shaky, it's that help me counsel section. Like I'm doing this. I got a lot of people supporting this decision, but they'll look at me like, help me. I'm in this and I'm in over my head. And some I've been able to help and say, you probably need to rethink this. And they grab the lifeline. And then others have told me point blank, My mom, my dad, they spent too much money. My friends flew in. I just can't let them down. And I'm like, how disappointed do you think they're going to be after having flown in 6 months from now, having bought you this expensive gift and flown in, and now you calling them to tell them it's over?
Or she punched me
Let's get
again.
on stock right here and right now.
Be like, man, she
I'm
punched
a big
me again.
proponent of, if it ain't gonna work, you really have right up until the last minute to pull out. And I ain't gonna think nothing negative about you.
And can't you say, when they say, and if you do this, will you promise to do this? Can't you say, instead of I do, I don't? No, I don't.
Well, let me
Or
say,
I'm
one of the
out.
funniest things that ever happened in a wedding where a brother, and I don't do promises, I do commitments. Because a promise is what you say to somebody to set expectations. A commitment is what you say to somebody to produce obligation. So I don't even ask them to promise stuff. I make them commit. But I was doing, and I do a series of 7 commitments. And I got to one of the commitments, and one of the brothers was like, man. I was like, dude, you sure? Right there in the way. I'm like, if you can't do this, just now is the time. Oh no, man, it just hit me, you know. And this is the dialogue we're having at
The altar.
the wedding. But he was like, no, I'm good. You know, I got it. And he did, but it showed the reflection and the seriousness and the weight of it, that he was thinking like, man, okay, so this is real. Yep, this is real. This is why all these people are here.
Hey, Bridget, can I say something really quick?
Sure, go ahead.
You know, and it kind of goes, piggybacks on what you were saying earlier, like, for instance, like marriage is a prize. Like, you do singleness right, you get the grand prize, which is marriage, so to speak. And what I think is really great and healthy about this discussion, particularly as Donald continues to magnificently peel back and reveal some of the dynamics and challenges that marriage has. Not that it's not a beautiful thing, but you know, there are challenges. Is that it kind of diffuses the myopic view of marriage, which I've said for the longest. I think sometimes we're set up for failure by the marriage, for the wedding ceremony itself. You know, the decadent ambiance, the food, and the bride is just like Snow White, and princess, and the dude is.
I call it the marriage cult.
Yeah, it's like you know, and everything is perfect and immaculate and impeccable. And then you know, then you have to actually live a life. So it's a beautiful thing, obviously, to be married, but people shouldn't look at singleness as sort of a graduation or a grand prize now necessarily, because there's challenges in both areas. So.
Oh yeah, it's like a graduation from college football to the NFL.
Right.
Yeah, okay, your lifestyle changes, but there's some grown expectations now.
Right.
There's some grown expectations now. And that's what marriage is. And part of, even in the one of the things I say when I'm handing out the rings in a marriage is, when I hand the man his ring, I said, one of the things I want you to notice is look at her hand and look at yours. Her ring is better than yours. And she got hers before you're getting yours. That's your life.
Wow.
That's your life. As a man, that's your life.
Yeah.
The way things are set up, if I'm a good father, if I'm a good husband, I should never live to see the full result of that. Did you hear what I just said? If I'm a good father, then the real result of that will be my children's children's children, and I won't see the result of that. And no one really teaches us as men that we're long-term investors who rarely see the full reap and result of that if you do it right. So again, that's part of it, is just, we look at the ring thing as an ego thing. Oh, look at the ring, I got her. Look at the head start she has in getting hers before you get yours. Because that's what that ring is. It's signaling and modeling what manhood is. And what manhood is the ability to make an investment off of conviction and character rather than reward and payback. And most of us as men don't come in understanding how much of this will not be rewarded, not be affirmed, not be acknowledged, because people can't know the full value of it until they're out further. All of the repetitive stuff with my son, it wasn't until recently he came to me and said, whew, I was headed to be sorry. If you had let, you know, and Carrie knows this, I put him in football because he had two sisters, not because I was in love with football. He got mad at me one day and said, you're just trying to live vicariously through me by having me play football. And I said, well, you're living actually through me because I'm paying real money for you to live. There ain't nothing vicarious about that. I taking care of you. But he didn't understand that I'm not in love with football and put him in football. I recognize you're being cared for when your mom's not around by your grandmother, who you run. You have two sisters, and you have your mom, and it's just me and you. I need you to know what it's like to be around other brothers. And I need you to know what it's like to have a man sit in front of you and have a plan to disrupt your plan, and you have to overcome that. But that's how I have to be thinking as a father. These are all long-term things that if mama's bringing him home from practice and he's crying about, I don't want to play football, and mom doesn't like the pressure of having to work and then hear him whine and complain. So now she's trying to exert influence on me to get the system changed. Right. That's manhood. Right. Where, you know, no, he's playing football. He ain't getting out of it. Now, he can go to practice and not play at the games if he wants. But this is part of our man building program. Well, when he matured, we would have meetings at the end of the season because we had already accomplished what we wanted. And he and I would have these meetings at the end of the season, and I would ask him, what are our goals? What are we setting? What do you want to achieve? What do you need to improve? And are you owning another year of football? And he has to learn his manhood from me, because most of what women say when they say they don't want to mother a man, what they're really saying points to the fact that the man wasn't fathered. And that, you know, my little tangent on that.
Well, Pastor Bell, too, this is two questions here that kind of go together, so I'm just going to say them together. The one, she wants to know, how long should marital counseling be, and how long should someone date before they get engaged?
Answer one, it should be long enough to be a sacrifice. Because part of it isn't what you learn. Part of it is the practice of valuing the marriage enough to change your schedule. That's practice for later. So some of it isn't just a big part of the discipline of going to premarital is that it shows that you value the relationship. So for instance, I had a couple, one of them was in New York, the other one was here. And I said, he needs to fly out here and be out here. Oh, well, that'll be just such a sacrifice. He's not moving out here till like the week before. I can't do your marriage and I can't do your pre-marriage. Oh no, we can Skype him in. No, we can't. Because he doesn't value the marriage. 6 months after they got somebody else to marry them, she calls me saying he won't spend time with me.
You don't say.
Mm.
Really, he doesn't value sowing into the marriage. This you could see coming. So that's the answer to the question of that. Now, the question of how long should we be engaged and all that depends on the maturity of the person. And here's what I'll say. I knew I was going to marry my wife after date 2. We just needed nobody to do stupid. We were getting married. Just long as nobody do stupid, we're gonna make it to the altar. The issue isn't how long does it take to get engaged. The issue is what is their capacity to stay engaged with you. That's the issue. What's their ability to honor the commitment that they've made? And if they've shown no capacity in the past to honor commitments, then it doesn't matter if you stay with them for 5 years or 50 years before you get married. And again, dating isn't going to do anything but build you towards a conviction that at some point you need to move on. But you're not at a point, you're saturated with information. So if somebody's been engaged for 5 years, which I do not recommend, you've seen everything. You're saturated with information. You should have moved at the point where you had enough information to make a commitment. But now you start, beyond a certain point, you start to create more damage than you do bond.
Okay. Let me clear something up for Sheila Young. She was on here. She said, please clarify what Carrie said. Did he say that getting married was the ultimate prize for doing and being single? No, Sheila. He was actually, I had said that that's what people think that marriage is, that it is kind of the reward for being a good single. Here's your prize for that. So he was making reference to that. No, he was not saying that. Please do not jump him in the parking lot. That's not what he said. So I had to cover you, Carrie, on that one because she was on her way. Okay. And then 2, so what I'd like to do, because we are, wow, and it's only because we don't have this all the time. So we are almost at 2 hours. So Pastor, but I want to get in as well some of the things that I said I was going to cover. So we covered that singleness is a godly season. We covered the fact that you're not, marriage does not make a single valuable. It's not like, okay, now you're married. Okay, now we can talk to you because, like it's some club. You've been initiated. Congratulations. Also, we talked about that the church is kind of backwards when it comes down to how they represent singles and how it's more single shaming and how it's more marriage motivating. And then once Regina had a question that she's going to propose to us. And then after that, Pastor Bell, the 2 points I want you to cover is, this pandemic is hurting folks, period. I mean, I've seen some married folks that's having a hard time with this pandemic thing and being on lockdown, and he ain't never going home. So, but, we can see those happen and manifesting, but let's talk about the pandemic and us as singles. We as singles have to deal with this pandemic our own selves. And, a lot of times when we socialize, that's kind of gets us our, we get our people fix, but we don't have that as much anymore, in the person to person. So we got to deal with it through the pandemic. And then the importance of us, coming together and being in an environment with like-minded singles and how important that is. So you can speak on those 2 points, Pastor Bell, and then, after Regina says her question.
Okay, and you may need to remind me because I have severe ADD.
Yeah, I'll say it again, but those are the 2. Regina?
I have a statement from a young lady and a question from a gentleman. The statement is just, it's validating what Pastor Bell had said. She says that he's all up in her business because she and her ex-husband went for premarital counseling and were advised not to get married. So they eloped and spent 15 years in couples counseling before they decided to divorce.
Wow.
So she just wanted you to know that you were all up in her stuff.
15 years.
And then I have a minister. He has a question. If two people are living together and have children, should you give them marriage counseling, and how long?
Here's what I've done. Because at different points, we've had couples come in who are living together and they had children. To me, you've already made a commitment. You need to get married, or decide that you're not going to be together, and you need to let your children start to grieve where this is obviously heading. So what I've done is, and two of our more successful marriages in terms of oneness, just from a observable backstage pass access, two of our most happily married couples are couples who came to the church who were shacking. And at some point, the conviction of the messages they came and shared. And I told them, here's the thing, you can keep coming to the church. You're never going to hear me say anything directly to you about what you need to do. But here's what I will say. I'm always going to ask you when I see you, so how's it going? Just be prepared for me to say that, and you know what that means. Because I don't want to produce a sense of conviction in people that the Holy Spirit hasn't produced. Both couples eventually came to me and said, we can't keep coming here and living like this. And so here's what we did. They got married, and I just married them at different venues that we could just do. And then they planned their wedding. But what we wanted to do was, by conviction, get them out of their sin. But whatever state of sin you keep coming to the church in, as long as you're not serving, you can keep coming in that state, because I trust the Holy Spirit will eventually, through the word, convict you at a level. And that's been fairly consistent with the people that I've walked with, and allowing them room to develop a personal conviction rather than me coming up with rules for them, made them make a greater investment in their marriage, because it forced them to answer questions about, why have we chosen this structure, knowing how God feels about it. So in that dynamic, that's how I've handled it, and God has blessed it from that standpoint. And again, two of our most content couples are couples who came in, quote, shacking. And then with the kids, you got to have a conversation with the kids around, this is what we chose to do, this is how we went about it. And you know, are basically confessing sin to your children so that they understand this is not the way to go about it. This is how we did it, but we're not trying to hide it either. But I don't believe shame changes behavior. I believe shame drives behavior underground. So in our church, you're not going to be shamed for it. But again, don't then ask to serve in some capacity, because you got some stuff you need to work out. We ain't going to, you know, have you, you know, doing anything significant. So.
Okay, so Pastor Bell, to kind of close us out, the 2 points that I had mentioned before was, I'll talk about the singles and the pandemic, you know, and then also the importance of staying connected as singles and in a healthy platform. Yeah,
it's important to stay connected because of singles' capacity to be in their own head. The most toxic thing is downtime with your own brain, because the most abusive person is the voice in your head. And what I call, or what psychologists call, the danger of thoughts about thoughts. So you'll have a thought, and then you'll have a thought about that thought, and then a thought about that thought. You're down the rabbit hole by that point. Because now you're having worries and fears about things that aren't connected to your original thought. So first, I'm lonely. Man, I'm lonely. Now I'm having a thought about the reason why I'm lonely is because I don't have somebody. And the reason I don't have somebody is I don't look as good as other people. And since I don't, so now I'm coming up with a makeover to look good to settle my loneliness when the loneliness is the issue. So you need to break that pattern up in terms of just being in your own head. Beyond that, you need other people in your life in terms of, and this is married or single, in terms of you need, in wrestling, they have a match called the lumberjack match. And I know wrestling is fake, but just go with me. It's called the lumberjack match. And what it means is two opponents get in the ring and it's surrounded by both of their friends. And if one of you try to crawl out of the ring, the lumberjacks throw you back into the ring and they make you deal with stuff. At a personal level, we all need lumberjacks. We need people to surround our lives that when we try to crawl out and not deal with stuff, they will grab a hold of us and they will throw us back in the ring. And we need those people in our lives, and we can't let the epidemic that we're experiencing cut us off from that. So that's about technology and creativity at this point. So maybe you need to have some friends where you know, well, I'll give you an example. My wife just did a fellowship at a 24-hour fitness parking lot, because we know ain't nobody in the 24-hour fitness, where they did a tailgate party. You know, they just went and hung out and everybody brought their own food. They social distance, got to have that kind of fellowship. And we knew wasn't nobody coming to kick us out of a 24-hour fitness, because ain't nobody going into 24-hour fitness. And they spent time talking and dialoguing, connecting. So it's getting creative like that.
That parking lot is no joke.
Yeah, and but understanding how important it is to stay connected. And then, like I said, there's Zoom, there's other kinds of ways, technologically speaking, where you can have these kinds of connections. Because the truth of the matter is, and I remember singleness, because singleness for me was really painful, because church gave me the illusion of connection till I left church and went home by myself. And so I'm having all this real fellowship and connection with people, but then I'm going to home by myself and I still got to deal with that. So I think it's important, especially for singles, to stay connected to people and have people in their lives, and to get real creative about fellowship. Social distancing at this point is not defined by staying in the house, camped and cooped up. So get creative. You know, you may have to do like some of those cop lunches where you see how cops will parallel park with each other and they'll dialogue across cars and stuff like that. So may have to have some tailgate parties or some Zoom parties or some other things, but get creative and stay connected.
Cool. I'm only going to do this one question because it's interesting. This one girl said, and this is the final question.
Okay. And this will be the final answer.
Okay. Do you believe that God will not allow that? I'm phrasing it wrong. I guess it's
okay.
I just read it real quick. I understood it in my head and then I started reading. Okay.
Well, say it like you understand it.
Okay. I guess what she's saying is, do you believe that there'll be someone who will not get married, but still have the desire to? Like God will say, you will not get married, but you'll still have that desire.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of things we have desire for that may or may not happen. I don't necessarily like the notion that we put it on God that I didn't get married. I just don't have a theological basis for blaming God, because I believe that there's not the one there's the choice. And who you find and who you marry is about your choices. And once you make a choice, then can you live with the choice that you've made, the two of you? So I don't think there's any like boundary on people that I'm not comfortable theologically with the notion that God chose me not to be married. Because here's my belief: if that's your actual call, and it's not a choice, and God's made that call, every area of calling I've ever had, I also had a peace from God about it, no matter how difficult it was. Now, I'm not saying it was easy to go through. I'm saying I had peace enough to go through it. So if you don't have that peace, and what Paul seems to be indicating is marriage is a choice, elsewise he wouldn't tell them, hold off on marriage unless you're burning. That implies there's a choice there, a choice that comes with that. So I'm not comfortable saying God has mandated I wouldn't get married. That time and chance happened to us all, according to Scripture. And I think you just need to be wise about going about, if that's something you want, you need to have wisdom in your pursuit. So I'll just give you this brief thing. I wanted to get married, but I was so, and this is going to sound crazy to some people, but those who know me know I'm telling the truth. I was so shy, and so people called it standoffish, but it was really shyness and withdrawn, that my friends were meaningful. I wasn't like the dude in the mix. I wasn't Carrie cool. Let me just say that. I wasn't Carrie cool.
Yeah, whatever.
Carrie is a hub and a connector. Bridgette, you're a hub and a connector. People connect around you. So what I did was I stayed connected to people like you and Carrie. And what I did was, to expand my kind of search, I took people I trust and asked them, especially the women in my life, asked them to start helping me with my search. And one of the ways that I found my wife was through an accomplice. So it's a choice to me, and I think you got to get creative with the choice if that's what you want. You got to open yourself up more than you're comfortable, because again, there's no safe way to do dangerous.
So if that just comes along with, so the people that say when you get married and they think, well, she just married the wrong person. She didn't marry the
there's no wrong person.
I'm just trying
There's
to
no
clear
wrong
up some because can I tell you, being in church, being born on a pew, I feel there's so many things that have been engraved, and the catchphrases, and they just get engraved, and people act on them, and no one ever washes their brain off and go, that's stupid right there.
Well,
but
here's
your grandmama's
the thing.
been saying it, and your aunties are saying
the
it.
notion of two people even looking for each other and getting married by choice in human history is fairly new. Because prior to that, the marriages were arranged. The notion of finding somebody, so even in the era where the scripture was written, he that findeth the wife findeth the good thing, even then the marriages were arranged.
Right.
So if you look from Abraham, what did Abraham say when he wanted his son to get married? Go find my wife and then work out an arrangement with her people. He didn't say, take my son and let him go find a wife. So even the whole notion of dating and getting married for romantic reasons is new in human history. So there's your curve. But it is our choice, and we need to own our choice.
Right.
Well, I just wanted to, like I said, I guess that's what I want to be drilled home, because some of the singles that I've come across, and some of just the environment, and when the people get to talking, they kind of tell you how they've been programmed.
Yeah.
And there's such a there's some people that are not married because they just didn't choose, and they are waiting for this big voice from God to say he's him. you know, because that's what they said. And so they're kind of like, why are you still single? You know?
Even though, you know, I said that was my last thing, but one last story. I have a friend who had a very successful, had a tremendous amount of opportunities with great women. This is my assessment, that he could have married and had any form of life he wanted to choose, godly women who went off to marry somebody else, have successful marriages. And at one point recently, he and I were having the conversation, and he was just telling me how God never brought the one. I said, that's because he brought the 100.
Right.
And you didn't pick a one. You know, but theologically, he cannot unlock his mind that the heavens didn't open to show him the one.
Okay.
And every time he hit a bump, his fear and all that, his need for control, all that stuff kicked in.
Yeah.
And so I said, all of that careful that you were doing, this is why you're not married, because you've been so careful not to marry the wrong one that you didn't pick anyone.
Right.
And now your stock is descending because you're older. Time and chance happened to us all.
But we, of course, want to I'll put this in there only because for the ladies sitting there going, well, okay, I'm finna go to the club and get that man. Look here, we want him to be saved.
Again, I said, my godly friends help me. So I didn't say my friends. I said my godly friends, the ones that had character that I assumed that the person they recommended would have their similar character. Yeah.
I'm just trying to clear it up because somebody will be like, Pastor Bell said that the bouncer at the club was my man. It's to go get him.
Yeah. So. We could do a whole show too. God told me you're mine.
Oh, don't say that. That's that's profanity to me. Profanity. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you, and I hope that all of you guys that are out there watching, you guys have some stick-to-itness, because you guys are consistent and you're watching, and prayerfully, you've heard something that has answered your questions. I definitely gave you the opportunity to pose a question to us and to Pastor Bell, and some of you, complied, and hopefully we got that all cleared up. If for any reason, though, there is a question that you're just a little shy and you didn't want to put it out to the masses, just email me the questions. I stay in contact with Pastor Bell so I can get him to answer that question to you privately. If all you have to do is just email me at thepurposepartytv@gmail.com, and we'll get those questions answered for you. Anytime we have a broadcast, we are keeping our eyes on the chats, and as well, that email is being read constantly too. So, you're not being ignored or anything like that. And if you are watching the rebroadcast, we are giving you that opportunity to put, obviously you weren't here for the live, but if you email me at thepurposepartytv@gmail.com, then we can get those questions answered for you. Also, if you want to be a part of this kind of forum again on a private level, maybe a more exclusive Zoom, email me as well. Just put your email in that, just say hi, and then put your email in there and say, I'd like to participate. And so then when we get together again, we'll make sure that you are included. This right here, all of us on the panel, let's give Pastor Bell a hand for coming out and being here. I appreciate you so much, Pastor Bell. I don't know, I'm gonna have to go create some more words of accolades for you because I've run out. You are my friend, you are a mentor, and I'm gonna bring a couple of guys to you probably Tuesday at 2:00, okay? Anyway,
back.
Tuesday at 2:00. So, but anyway, this is something great, and we're going to be doing it again. And those of you who watched both shows, thank you. Watch them again, send them out, share these videos with everybody that you know is single, any organizations that you're aware of that do singles ministries. Any of these broadcasts can be tagged, they can be shared. So please do that. And because we really had some great pertinent information that would help a lot of singles out there. And we're going to, like I said, we're going to do it again. Anyway, I love you so much. Everybody here that is on this panel, thank you. couldn't have done it without you and wouldn't want it to. So out there, you guys keep watching the Purpose Party. I do have another show coming in 2 weeks. It's called Mind Your Business, and it's the spiritual and the practical side of doing business. And I got some great guests coming on for that. But until then, I have a mantra. Hopefully my crew knows my mantra for this particular show. And come on, if you remember it, say it. And if you don't, shame on you. I'll reprimand you later. But if you don't, with Purpose Party, we say purpose. If not now, when? I love you guys. Have an awesome week.
Bye, guys.
See you next
That's
time.
it.
Kingdom.